again, being around for 27 years in Netherland, Jill has formed some incredible partnerships. I could probably list in one way or another how each business in Ned has helped us in some way, shape, or form.
You're listening to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast. Here's your host, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. My guest today is Mike Reichert, and he is the Director of Operations at Wild Bear Nature Center here in Nederland, Colorado, which is just down the street from me. Mike and his team are really building an ambitious plan to educate and bring more people into nature. As part of that, they're building a new nature center here in Ned. So they're doing a huge capital campaign in order to try and raise awareness and raise funds for that construction. We talked about ways that they can expand that message and get more people on board, drive more revenue, build more relationships just through leveraging partnerships. And we talked about a whole bunch of other stuff. That was kind of the main thrust of our conversation. I really had a great time talking with Mike. I think that Wild Bear Nature Center does some really amazing things here for the local community and beyond. And I would encourage you to check it out. I hope you enjoy the episode. Talk to you soon. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent.
Me too. It's a beautiful day up here in the Nederland area. I'm assuming you're here locally.
Yes, I live in the town, and I also work in the town of Nederland.
Fantastic. Well, tell us all a little bit more about Wild Bear Nature Center and what you guys are up to these days.
Sure. Well, before this podcast, I was helping to check in about 40 kids for our summer camps that we run for 10 weeks from the start of June till about the start of August. It's an incredible place, very happy, positive, welcoming kids into the facility, and then getting them out into the forest so they can explore and learn and play. That's kind of our whole thing. Wild Bear was started in 1995 by Jill Dreves, the executive director. She also lives here locally. Prior to Wild Bear, she was an elementary school teacher, started this organization with $500 in her savings account, and it's grown year over year. And surprisingly, over the last year during the pandemic, it's grown exponentially. We doubled our full-time staff. We're in the design phase to build a net zero nature center within the town of Nederland. That'll be a destination for locals, front range families, tourists. It's going to be incredible. I was contemplating it the other day. I really think it's going to be one of the sought after destinations in all of Boulder County. Just because of geographically, we're between Estes Park, Boulder, and I-70, and there really aren't any learning facilities kind of in that region. So Wild Bear is open 7 days a week, aside from a few major holidays, free visitation to anyone who wants to come in. We're all about inspiring, local community engagement with the environment and really trying to teach people to be better stewards to the earth so that, generations to come can enjoy the wilderness that we get to enjoy in Nederland and the surrounding area. It's really a great facility. Our bread and butter are kids programs and our summer camp especially. But we offer all ages programming, which we think is unique in Boulder County. So, for example, this weekend, we have, a free bird walk for adults and families. Last weekend, we participated in the Nederland town cleanup, and we got volunteers to kind of walk around town and pick up trash and bring it back and just really care for the environment.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And then, we're just growing our programming. Like I said, we've grown through the pandemic, and we hired an amazing education director who has huge ambitions. For example, yesterday we did 6 separate kids programs throughout the day. And she's just as ambitious as Jill and I are, and passionate, and wants to see Wild Bear grow now, so that when we quote unquote graduate to our new facility, we're ready to go, and we have robust programming, and it's full, and it's exciting, and we're just getting people outdoors.
That's great. I'm really excited to hear that you're expanding, particularly after last year's challenges, and being able to get people back in person and really showing them all the great things that are available in terms of wildlife and exploration, and getting kids and adults out into the wilderness. I know that we're really excited about this new center that you guys have started to develop, and right around the Mud Lake area. In fact, I'm on the board of Netherland Area Trails Organization, and we helped build some trails on that property for you guys a couple of years ago for nature walks. And so it's going to be really fun to see how that all comes together, and how you can get that really unique, exciting new facility up and running. Is that the main thrust of your outreach right now, is trying to fund the construction of that new facility?
Yes, pretty much. It's just an amazing, incredible thing. Like I said, we hired Michelle Whitty from California. She's originally from Colorado, and she has big ambitions. And so we have total trust in her on what she's doing, and it's allowing Jill and myself to really focus on the fundraising piece, while also kind of interjecting into the programs when needed, to give guidance and things like that. It's kind of funny. I'm the second most seasoned employee at Wild Bear, and I've only been there 3 years.
Okay.
So it goes Jill, 27 years, lifelong dream and passion. I was living in Netherland, and was fortunate to find a part-time opportunity at Wild Bear 3 years ago. And I loved it so much that I kind of, when someone left the organization, I said, hey, I would love to do this full time, because it's just, you have the freedom to be creative. You can really move the needle, make an impact. We all talk about the think globally, act locally kind of philosophy. And in Netherland, there are ambitious sustainability goals for the entire town that, is built into our mission and our belief system. And so Jill's on a bunch of Envision 2030 committees. I work for the town as a subcontractor. My title is beautification specialist.
Nice.
And it's because we love where we live, and we really feel very fortunate. Prior to working at Wild Bear, I spent most of my time in Boulder, because that's where my full-time job was. And I didn't realize the magnitude and the amount of people who pre-pandemic came through this little town from all over the world.
Yeah.
You'd have people visiting from China and the Netherlands, especially. That's always a funny one to see them take pictures in front of the police cars because it says Netherland. But again, we're small, we're local, but we can have a global impact just by the people who wander in our doors.
Absolutely.
Which is really incredible. And yeah, the thrust of our goals right now are really focused on the nature center, the new nature center, because currently we're a lot of people don't even know we exist, even though we've been around for 27 years.
Yeah, you're kind of tucked in there in the mall.
Yeah.
Right.
I always call it the strip mall.
Uh-huh.
And people wander in and they're like, oh my gosh, what is this place? Where am I?
Yeah.
They don't expect a concrete parking lot to have, this homey nature center that also, we integrate arts.
Right.
And we love to talk about how arts and sciences collide, and nature inspires art, and
Yeah.
all of those things. And so it's going to be incredible when we're on the facility right at the corner of the Indian Peaks Wilderness. It'll be less chaotic because you're in the forest, and I think families are going to hang out more. When you're in the parking lot of the strip mall,
Sure.
It's so busy, and we make it work, but it's not ideal. So we're really chomping at the bit to get out of there, even though it's been a great home for 11 years. And we actually just expanded to a bay next door.
Okay.
To increase because we increased our staff, we needed more office space, and it's a dual use office space, arts lounge. There's a need in Netherland for artists to have a place to go and create.
Yeah.
And we love that. And so we have this eco arts lounge that's going to have pop-up galleries and weekend hours. So it's still in the works, but it's going to be incredible. I mean, I just learned the other day that Boulder County has one of the top 5 concentrations of artists in the entire country. So we're hoping by providing more things for all ages that we kind of draw people up from Boulder, because we've really had a lot of challenges over the past 2 years, not to mention the pandemic, but Boulder Canyon,
it's been crazy.
Prior was was closed from 10 to 2 Monday through Thursday, and when you're trying to get school groups to come up and participate in programming, we were isolated to just Fridays, and so once the canyon is free and clear, once the pandemic is hopefully under control, people are going to really seek us out, I think. It's exciting, really exciting times.
Yes, you guys have a lot going on, and you've weathered some serious challenges over the last few years. So I know you built a new website in the last year. Mm-hmm. What other activities are you engaged in to try and raise funds for this new facility?
Yeah. So we prior to my employment, we weren't really engaged a lot in the Boulder community. We're really well known in Nederland, obviously, and a few people in Boulder have either heard of us or have sent their kids to our camps. So we've reached out and we've joined the Boulder Chamber to kind of expand so that people are seeing our names. We were going to try to participate in a bunch of the Boulder farmers markets, but they're not having organizations participate this season. It's more just paid vendors and not nonprofits. But in the past, we've done Boulder farmers markets. Mm-hmm. We're doing the Netherland farmers market this Sunday. We're doing one of those a month.
Oh, great. I'll swing by.
Yeah, we'll be there. We hired a local architecture firm to design the building, Arc 11, out of Boulder, and they have an office in Denver as well. The principal architect actually used to live in Ned. His kids came to Wild Bear. So we're engaging kind of companies in Boulder to hopefully start talking about us to their constituents.
Okay.
We've hired Studio Tectonic to kind of give us advice and guidance on our professional exhibits. Because right now everything is done grassroots.
Right.
you mentioned, the challenges we faced. We were fortunate that actually during the pandemic, because we're a licensed childcare facility, we were encouraged to stay open.
Yeah.
We had just hired our education director, Michelle, 5 days prior to the pandemic shutting everything down.
Okay.
So she got here excited for what was to come. And then, we had to close for a few months.
Sure.
But then we reopened. We safely operated our summer camp during the pandemic. I give kudos to all the people involved. It was not easy, but Boulder County being very supportive, the grant funding that was coming through.
Right.
And then one thing that we just learned of that is, I think, really going to launch us forward. We applied for the Social Venture Partners Catapult initiative.
Okay.
And they are a group of people and organizations and companies in Boulder that we had to apply for. It was very competitive, lots of interviews, lots of Q&As, that type of thing, and we were selected. I don't know out of how many, but I know.
Oh, congrats!
It was very competitive. It's a 3-year guaranteed grant money, but they also give pro bono services to help us where we're kind of falling short in some of our activities.
Gotcha.
Like you said, we're doing so much. We were able to expand our staff, but we're still, piecemealing things together.
Right.
As best we can. And so we're really excited for their pro bono services, because they said they're going to really help broaden our reach in the Boulder community.
Okay.
So yeah, that's really exciting for us. We're getting ready to release have a press release sent out, and then we'll start working with their partners to grow the organization even more.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're doing some grant work. Do you guys have access to any of the GoCo grant stuff, or does that fall outside of your area?
No, we have applied for GoCo funding in the past. We partnered with the town of Nederland last year on a grant proposal. We weren't selected.
Okay.
But we have some current grants that, especially capital grants, that are in the pipeline.
Right.
One in particular in Boulder County is called the Worthy Cause Grant.
Mm-hmm.
It's where they take a portion of tax dollars and support nonprofits, and we're hoping that's going to be a large 6-figure gift that'll kind of launch us forward. I mean, we're kind of being aggressive with the new nature center.
Sure.
We want to break ground this fall. Construction in Netherland is difficult because of the weather. So we have this tight window. We have a local contractor who has also offered his services pro bono.
Oh, wow.
Which is about at least $250,000.
Yeah.
We'll see. When we initially did our estimates,
it's gotten crazy, right?
Yeah, prior to the construction costs doubling.
Yeah.
But again, with nonprofit fundraising, you just have to ask people, and hopefully someone out of the kindness and generosity is able to provide.
Yeah.
So we'll see if maybe a lumber company comes through and cuts those costs.
So do you have corporate sponsors or partners in that regard? Or I'm trying to get a feel for what assets you have that we could maybe help guide you to tap into in terms of expanding that reach. One of the things that that can be really effective is going after really big fish as opposed to a whole bunch of little fish. And I think it's a two-pronged approach for sure. I mean, we want to not exclude the little fish, but if we could get access to assets from someone large, whether that be, funds or potential reach, that can go a long way to being able to expand or elevate your messaging to a larger audience. So do you have kind of corporate partners that you work with at all that might have access to large email lists?
Yeah, a little bit. So Eldora, the local ski resort, is a huge supporter of all the nonprofits in Netherland. They're really awesome, and their larger company, Powder, we're trying to kind of talk to the owners of Powder, but the local people who run Eldora are very supportive. And so that's a big one. They help promote one of our fundraising events, the Backcountry Film Festival. They've provided their facilities when we didn't have any snow to do our snow school program.
Cool.
We were allowed to go use their Nordic Center for our snowshoeing. Which was really cool because a lot of kids, winter sports are expensive, and a lot of kids don't get a chance to see a ski resort. And we're really lucky that it's 15 minutes up the road. So they've been a big one. One of the big fish that is on my radar is Google. Since they are, they have
a facility in Boulder,
right? And it's growing. And I've seen their name on some other, like the Museum of Boulder has like a creative space, and it's sponsored by Google. I think it's called the Google Garage. So I'd really, I know we are very much we love low tech, so to speak.
Sure.
We're trying to disconnect kids from technology so they can reconnect with nature, but also technology is just a part of our lives. We have to embrace it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd really love for them to swoop in and put their name on it to kind of maybe give back to the community to say, hey, we understand, we're coming in, we're helping Boulder grow, and we want to give back to something like this that is really going to impact a lot of people.
Yeah, it's my understanding that a lot of those guys have actually built or bought homes in the Netherland area as well. So, the Ned community has some Google people in it, for sure.
And then I'm trying to think if there are any others. We do work with a national organization out of Boise, Idaho. They're called the Winter Wildlands Alliance. They sponsor Snow School. That is their program. And so that's a great partnership as well, because there are snow school sites all across the country.
Sure.
And I remember the first snow school program I went to, explaining to kids that this can be your job. We work with the CU Mountain Research Station. They bring in scientists and volunteers and interns from CU, and telling kids like, this can be your job, coming out here and digging in the snow and finding out what's happening underneath. And I just remember a kid being like, what? I could do that for a career? And I was like, absolutely. So really opening kids' eyes to things that they might not be thinking of is really special.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of ideas here. The first one is Google has a nonprofit program, and you can apply for a Google grant, and they will give you, if you are successful in your application, will give you up to $10,000 per month of Google ads that you can run. So getting involved with that program could potentially create opportunities for you. And then one of the things that we've seen work really well is running sweepstakes. And there is a company called TapCat, and I'd be happy to make an introduction to TapCat for you. But they run sweepstakes programs for nonprofits. And essentially, that's one of the reasons I was asking about corporate sponsors, is if we could if you can tap into the mailing lists, so the email lists from some of these large corporate opportunities, particularly Eldora, and I don't know if CU could open up their system or not, but Winter Wildlands Alliance might be, interested in doing that. You can really tap into TapCat's systems in order to bring in donations for a sweepstakes run. And it does a couple things. One, it brings in those donations, but you also get access to all the data. So all of the new people that would then be built into that list. And so I think that those might be some opportunities for you, and you can use those in kind of, conjunction with one another. So you can create a TapCat sweepstakes and then use your Google grant to drive traffic to that and to increase the awareness. So those are two ideas that I would recommend looking into for your organization in order to try and broaden your reach and kind of supercharge your donations.
For sure. And actually, it's funny. We did apply for and get a G Suite for nonprofits. Mm-hmm. We were approved for Google grants.
Perfect.
And again, that's where, small organization and team and still operating, day to day, and trying to do this huge capital fundraising. We're kind of like trying to figure it out on our own. And that's where it's kind of like, I'm hoping someone through this SVP grant and program that we were awarded, that someone there can kind of like take the reins with it and help us get that going, because it's time consuming when you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Get it going, and you spend a couple of days and you're like, oh my gosh, I still haven't. I have all these other things. But the TapCat thing seems really cool. And we have reached out to like the local REI store. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those places are very particular in what they carry, and they're running programs that are very similar to what we're running. So it's kind of like I want to call it competition, but essentially it is when they're having a snowshoe event at Brainerd Lake. Well, that's what we're doing on our property at Mud Lake. But I will say the local. And they've been very supportive. They let me come in and talk to their staff, and they let us table there one time.
Cool.
So they are very supportive. It's just, like if we have a field guide and we want them to carry it, it's not approved. But the Patagonia store locally has also been really, really supportive. We love Patagonia because they changed their mission statement a couple of years ago that we're in business to save our home planet, which we love. And each of the local stores are allowed, like the employees choose the nonprofits in the area that they'll support. Mm-hmm. And I've tabled at their store before to promote events. They've donated lightly worn gear to some of the families that don't have as much winter gear, because like I mentioned, it's expensive. And then anything we don't use, we distribute to some of the other local organizations here in Netherlands. So we're all just trying to help each other out. But yeah, those are great sources. I'm going to look into that TapCat for sure.
Yeah, let me know if you would like an introduction. We're friends with those guys.
Okay.
So a couple other things there that I think you could potentially look into, and one is, so you're probably aware that Patagonia is a 1% for the Planet partner. Mm-hmm. 1% for the Planet has business partners. So for example, my business Relish Studio is a business partner for 1% for the Planet. So 1% of our revenue goes to environmental causes, but they have a list of certified 1% for the Planet nonprofits. And those are the people to whom these businesses donate, their funds for to make up their 1%. So if you're not a 1% nonprofit partner, given your environmental slant, I'm sure that you could become one very easily. So you might check out the 1% program as well.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely, I've seen that on a lot of things, and yeah, it's definitely on my radar. The other organization that we would love to partner with, because I believe the director he lives in Netherland, POW, Protect Our Winters.
Yep.
We really want to build a partnership with them. And we just became a Leave No Trace authorized partner as well.
Great.
So we're going to be pitching that more. Yeah, and then just kind of again, we always go back to grassroots, and like we mentioned, people come through Nederland, but they don't know we exist because of where we're tucked away. So our goal this summer, because of this ambitious staff we have, is to meet people where they are. So to go to, say, the Hesse trailhead and talk to people prior to them heading out onto the trails, to just remind them, your impact, you being here has an impact, positively or negatively, and we want to swing it to the positive side. So, and then just providing something small that they can take, that then hopefully when they come back through Netherlands, they're going to be like, let's stop at that nature center.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. The other thing that you mentioned, you were having some challenges getting your AdWords campaign set up through Google. You might look into Energize Colorado. We've been a mentor at Energize for the last year or so. This was a program put in place by Governor Polis and his team at the onset of the pandemic to provide opportunities for small businesses, and I think a nonprofit would qualify as a small business, to gain access to mentors and people who can, volunteer some of their time to help perhaps get your AdWord campaign set up. So you might check out Energize Colorado as well, and see if they can hook you up with somebody to help with your with setting up those campaigns for you.
Yeah, definitely. And Google also, when you set it all up, they have, you can request that, but I haven't heard back. It's been a few weeks.
Gotcha.
Now that you mention it, I actually have to follow up, but you basically say hey, we could use some support. It goes out to whoever they partner with. Maybe it's like a university, where they have expertise in that, and then they support you. But I hadn't heard back yet. I know it probably takes a couple of weeks, and somebody's availability has to be there.
Yeah, for sure. So, the takeaway being, as you're trying to attack this phase of engagement, where essentially you're trying to attract people and then just get them into your systems and into your mailing list and enable you to build those relationships, just leveraging all of those assets and not just necessarily thinking about what kind of dollars an organization might be able to bring as a partner with you, but also what are the additional assets that they might have that you could tap into. So mailing lists, internal marketing teams, product, product opportunities in terms of donation of product versus or even services rather than money. So just really, keeping your eyes and ears open for all of those opportunities that can help expand your mission and drive awareness.
Yeah, most definitely.
I really like the idea of Eldora. You mentioned that they are incredibly supportive of local nonprofits. They are trying to foster a lot of community here in the Netherland area, and they do have access to a a rather large email list that they could leverage potentially. So when you're having conversations with those guys, really talking with them about the ways that they could expand that positive effect that they're bringing to your organization, whether that be, tapping into the broader powder assets, or even just, within that Eldora, not tiny email list, basically just trying to figure out ways to enable you to get your message out there more effectively.
Yeah, they're actually, they're great. It's funny because 3 of the past 4 winters, I was a part-time employee at Eldora.
Okay, cool.
And so I know them not only from my introduction with Wild Bear, but then, I'm standing there in the retail shop selling goods for them.
Yep.
And I'd see the marketing guy and the executive, and they're really tapped into the community. Part of Nederland, I don't know if you know about this, there's the Downtown Development Authority. And yeah, one of their executives, he's on that board. And I happen to work, as a subcontractor for the town. So
right.
It's that small town where these dots are really easy to connect. And they supported, the food pantry, Teens Inc., all of the I'm blown away by the number of nonprofits in Netherland. I mean,
there are a lot of them, right?
List off about 10 of them, and there's only a few thousand residents. But their Play It Forward initiative was really cool last year, and we were a recipient of some of the funding from that. So yeah, they want to see Nederland thrive, because without the town, maybe they aren't as successful. But I know from working up there and talking to visitors, I would always mention, like, did you stop in Ned and check out any of the shops or restaurants?
Right.
No, just passing through. And that's the challenge in the wintertime for all the businesses in Nederland is, it's a slow time and people aren't looking to stop and hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing you might look at from and this isn't a huge well, but it certainly is an opportunity, is I know that there are a number of organizations, businesses in the Netherland area that do roundups and things like that. So ACE does one. Busey, the brewery there in town, they have a program where they select a nonprofit every month, I believe, and any purchases of a specific beer go, they'll donate $1 per beer to that organization. So, there are certainly a lot of very philanthropic and helpful people in the Netherland area. And so just, kind of leveraging all of that networking that you've done and all those connections that you have is a viable way to get out there and not only bring in revenue, but bring in awareness. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we've, again, being around for 27 years in Nederland, Jill has formed some incredible partnerships. I could probably list in one way or another how each business in Ned has helped us in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So when we have our Enchanted Forest fundraiser in the fall, usually every local business sponsors it or donates something. Just this past weekend during the town cleanup, New Moon Bakery donated coffee and pastries. We're already a part of the ACE Roundup. They usually do that for us in September, because that's when our fundraiser, takes place. Who else? Crosscut Pizza. We actually provide coloring sheets to them for the kids who are sitting there. And then we put, our list of programs on the backside with like a word search.
Perfect.
So while they're doing the word search, the parents see the list of programs and then the coloring sheet. And that not only that avenue of kind of promoting Wild Bear, but they have been a cash sponsor as well.
Right.
And,
Shannon and Peter are great.
Yeah. And again, it's just, they, and like Jesse, who works there, has a kid who will probably or hopefully come through Wild Bear. We now have people sending their kids to Wild Bear who Jill said were original Wild Bears.
Yeah.
And so it's starting, to be multi-generational. The Caribou Room they provide, they're going to be with the new facility that we're going to have right across the street from them. We're building that partnership and hopefully going to kind of, use their parking lot when we have overflow and at the same time, it's going to put them on the map for people who don't know about their amazing facility.
Yeah.
They actually helped us co-host our Backcountry Film Festival.
Oh, great.
The 2 years prior and gave us a break on the facility. Great people, great facility. The town of Nederland, we have great partnerships with. And we also have strategic donation boxes placed throughout town. So Mountain People's Co-op, there's one at the register there. I can't remember what other businesses we have them in now.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot of the right stuff. Have you? What's your email list look like in terms of how many kids have come through your program? How active are you with your emailing?
Yeah, so it used to be very irregular. It would be Jill and I like, oh my gosh, we got to get a newsletter out. It's been a couple of months since we've sent anything out. But again, because we got some funding to expand our staff, we now have a dedicated kind of social media manager.
Okay.
And she's been really great about making sure that we're posting at least daily. And then the email list, making sure that we're sending kind of a newsletter. And we worked with Walden Hyde in Boulder, a marketing firm who helped rebrand us, helped redesign our website, really stepped us up a notch. They kind of looked at what we were doing because we have so much to say that sometimes it gets overwhelming with the amount of copy that we have in our newsletters. So they really helped us pare things down, be real strategic. And I think our email outgoing list is a little over 4,000.
Okay.
And just hitting them with, a very specific thing like our volunteer event last weekend.
Right.
Or, the beginning of the month, here are all the programs that are coming up, make sure that, don't miss out on all the exciting things. That's kind of where we are. We use Constant Contact, which a lot of organizations do, which is really nice because you can get feedback on how many people engaged with it. Click rate, open rate, unsubscribe rate, which is always interesting to see, like who unsubscribed, who you thought might be,
sure,
somebody who would always want to know what we're doing, but I get that. But yeah, that's kind of where we are with the email campaigns.
Yeah. So one of the things we've been recommending and doing ourselves is being consistent. So that would be the first thing, is just try to get something out very regularly.
Yep.
And then when you're sending email out, there are some tricks and things that you can employ that will help with engagement as well as open rates and things like that. And the first is just trying to provide something of value. So instead of just having a newsletter, for example, that has, kind of 9 different things that you're trying to educate people about, feel free to send out an email about, some animal that was seen on the property last week and how exciting that was, and a little bit more about that animal, for example, or a flower that's blooming right now, to have people keep their eyes open, and have it just be a short, quick, like, did you know this was blooming this week? Maybe go out and try and find some and send us some pictures, and basically try to get engagement and try and get back and forth. Give people a little bit of information about that animal or that, plant that's interesting. And if you can do that and get very regular about that, people start to get kind of excited to see what's this newest thing that's going to be coming through. And then when you do it, also just strip out all of the HTML stuff. So all of the make it feel like this email came from somebody in your organization. And in fact, you could kind of circle through the people in your organization and have them be, the sender. Use constant contact, obviously, but make it come from a person. Mm-hmm. And when you do some of those things, you make these emails feel very personal. People start to feel like they have a real one-to-one kind of relationship with you and your organization, as opposed to just being another person on a list. So those are a couple of email tricks that you could maybe take advantage of to improve your engagement on that particular platform.
Yeah, that's great advice. We always, every time we're going to send one out, we always have a quick brainstorming session of, the subject line is so critical. What are we going to write in the subject line to catch their attention?
Yep.
Or that it's not going to get filtered into spam, because, that happens pretty regularly. But no, that's great advice.
Yeah, and subject lines, if you can use their name or even just use the word "you" in the subject line, that tends to help. Open rates, people like seeing their name, and if there's an email that they're scanning their inbox and it says, hey Stu, here's a new nature tip, I'm more inclined to pause on that email and then potentially open it than if it just said, here's a new nature tip. And then, the other way that you could do that is you could say, hey Stu, here's a new nature tip for you. That also reinforces that this is something, special for them.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. I'm going to pass that along to our social media person.
Cool. But yeah, I think that coming up with a calendar in terms of what you're planning to do in terms of your outreach, whether that be email or blog posts or Instagram or Facebook. I know you're on Facebook and Instagram as well, and YouTube. Video goes a long way. And there are ways to take and capture video and then turn that into a blog post that you could then send via email that you could then also kind of chop up for social. So figuring out ways to do something once and use it a variety of different times, particularly for nonprofits who are, they're busy, don't have huge staffs. That those are ways to help kind of get a lot of juice out of a single item.
Yeah, that's great tips. And like you said, you nailed it on the head. Like, it's just regularity and coming up with a schedule to make sure that we keep them engaged without those big breaks in between.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I mean, I face this. I'm sort of doing a lot of the communication stuff for Netherland Area Trails Organization. And, sometimes it's kind of hard to come up with something new and fresh on a regular basis. But if you can create a calendar and create an intention and a commitment to doing something on a schedule, you'll find that, if you didn't overreach, you can start to get comfortable with that schedule, and then it makes it easier to just add another one. But really just figuring out what you're going to commit to and then sticking with that. And then the other piece is you don't always have to be the creator of the material. If you can just bring information to people's attention, it's kind of called the being the Maven. But if you can supply people with information, that's essentially as good as being the person who thought it up. So if there is a great article that you found on Leave No Trace, for example, that's even from Leave No Trace, if you just can say, hey, here's a really cool article about how to reduce your impact as you're traveling through our wilderness areas, from Leave No Trace, and link out to the article. So basically give a little bit of information about why you think it's important. But if you're getting the people the information that they're interested in, that can be as effective and powerful as coming up with it yourself in some capacities.
Yeah, and especially as things start to ramp up, I'm really excited that we're now a Leave No Trace partner, because people coming into the Nature Center who are not from Colorado, and even people who are from Colorado, it's not at the forefront of everyone's mind. Or it's like, oh, I'll pick up that bag of dog poop when I come back.
Yeah.
And inevitably you forget.
Yeah.
And so just making people know that even a banana peel on the ground is impactful in a negative way, because that isn't a normal thing that would happen here if it weren't for this human walking by. Like, yes, it'll break down, but between now and then, an animal is going to get a hold of it anyway. Yeah. So that's what we are. We're an education institution, and we want to educate the public. And the number one question people coming from out of state who are a little hesitant is usually, what's there to do around here, or where should I go? Or, and that's the whole reason, to circle back to the new Nature Center, is like why we need that facility is because then we give them that first step into the wilderness where they're feeling safe and comfortable. And maybe that first step turns into, a mile, and then that mile turns into, a significant hike that then leads to a 14er. And, that progression is what we're really excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how can people find out more about Wild Bear?
We obviously have a web presence. It's www.wildbear.org. All of the information of our programs and our mission and our staff. There's a little bit of teaser video on there of the new Nature Center. Our history is on there as well. You can find us on Facebook, Wild Bear Nature Center. We're on Instagram, also Wild Bear Nature Center. We don't utilize Twitter too much, or at all, I should say. And then if people want to sign up for our regular newsletters, there's a way to do that on our website as well.
Perfect.
And there's plenty of volunteer opportunities. We're open 7 days a week, so there's ways to get involved inside the Nature Center, community outreach. We're always looking for new board members. There are a plethora of ways to be involved at Wild Bear, and we always say once a wild bear, always a wild bear.
Awesome. Yeah, I would encourage anyone coming through the Nederland area to look for the train and the Carousel of Happiness, and Wild Bear Center's right there, next to those two very, very obvious landmarks there in town, right in the middle of town. And I can't believe it's been almost an hour. This has been such a fun conversation, and I've really enjoyed learning more about Wild Bear. I really like to end all of my shows with an action. I love having conversations and talking with people, but I ultimately really want to inspire people to get out and do something. And so if our listeners today got through listening to our conversation and were wondering what they could do to be a better steward of the planet, what would you recommend that they do today?
I always go back to the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. So the first thing, reduce, meaning just, hyper consumerism is rampant in our world these days. And, just think about reducing the amount of stuff that you feel like you need to buy. Reusing things, find a second purpose for the plastic bag that was given to you from the grocery store. Or we love in our maker space reusing toilet paper rolls for kids' crafts, those type of things, and then just recycle what you can. And as I've been working at Wild Bear, another action, composting what you can reduces methane gases in the atmosphere tremendously. And then one thing that I always do, no matter where I am, whether it's in Netherland or Boulder or back visiting my family in Ohio, when I see trash on the ground, I pick it up. My mom always taught me, somebody's got to pick it up. If you're walking past it and you have the ability to pick it up and dispose of it in the proper way, that goes a long way. So those would be my pieces of advice.
I agree. I love it. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Mike. It was really great talking with you. I'm excited to see where you guys head with Wild Bear, and I will make sure I say hi at the farmers market this weekend.
Cool. Thanks so much, Stu. It was really great. My first podcast experience was excellent.
Awesome. I'm glad you had fun.
And I'll shoot over some stuff to you here in a little bit.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. There you have it. Another great episode of Relish This. Thanks for listening. If you would like to learn more about how to apply the audience engagement cycle to expand your organization's mission, there are 2 things you can do. Right now, you can go to missionuncomfortablebook.com to download a copy of my book. And while you're there, you can get your purpose-driven marketing score to see where you can unearth some gold for your organization. If you'd like to listen to back episodes of the show or sign up to be a guest, go to relishstudio.com/podcast. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week for another great episode of Relish This.